Hey everybody, Mike Morgan, Chief Communication Officer for Henderson County, and welcome to another edition of our Henderson County Conversations Podcast. And we've been dealing with Hurricane Helene since September of 2024. And when FEMA came to town, they brought someone down here to help us out by the name of Natalia Santana-Pollard. And we just fell in love with her. So an opportunity came for the Response and Recovery Director position to be filled. We reached out to her. She said, yes, I would love to do it. And I'll just tell you, folks, for me personally, one of the best hires we've ever had here in Henderson County, because she knows her stuff. She understands everything that's going on with FEMA and all that we're dealing with. So I tell you what, Natalia, that may be one of the biggest sucking up intros I've ever given to anybody. But we think the world of you. We're glad you're here, and welcome to Henderson County.
Thank you so much. That is a very sucking up intro. I'll take it though. I really couldn't imagine doing anything different at this point.
Well, and if you're wondering what she does, that's what we're going to get into today. What is the role of the Response and Recovery Director for Henderson County?
Oh gosh. I like to tell people that I have one foot in the past and one foot in the future. So in the past, that means I'm working with everybody from our fire departments to our county administration staff to the different entities within the county like Parks and Rec or vehicles or the sheriff's office, whatever, and trying to get some money from FEMA through our FEMA projects. But in the future, that's kind of the feelings part of my job, and that's working with our long-term recovery partners like the Disaster Recovery Partnership, other local area nonprofits, other entities, and making sure that we are setting Henderson County up for success for the next disaster by putting people in place, entities in place, organizations in place that are all working towards helping Henderson County residents get back on their feet to a pre-disaster or as close to pre-disaster as we can get them.
And as we mentioned earlier, you came from FEMA. So now coming from FEMA into a role where you're dealing with FEMA on a regular basis, to me, I think that's advantage Henderson County because we have someone who knows the ins and outs of what we're trying to deal with.
I would like to think so. I would like to hope so. I mean, I always tell people that every disaster is different. The people who work the disasters at FEMA are different, but at the end of the day, the mission is the same, which is to help people before, during, and after disasters. So I do like to think that I can provide almost like a translation service between what FEMA is looking for and what we're actually providing. And it's not just me alone. We're working with a lot of people to make sure that all of our interactions with FEMA are fruitful and lead to something happening.
And I've had a chance to work with Natalia on several projects. She's doing a great job just navigating this. And again, there's a lot to it. There really is. It's not just a simple, easy, quick fix. It takes a while for things to get done and for things to happen through FEMA, state, federal government, everything. And Natalia's doing a great job just kind of figuring that stuff out for us and for the county residents. Okay, so I guess my next question to you is, where are we today as far as recovery goes from Helene?
So that's actually a really good question. And I think we have to talk about what recovery means, right? So I think a lot of people hear recovery and they have some sort of concept of it, which is, oh, I'm going to be exactly where I was on September 26, 2024. And that's not really what recovery is, because this is the county's Katrina event, right? And no matter how much New Orleans has recovered or Mississippi has recovered, they're never going to get back to the day before Katrina. So where are we today? It's a mixed bag and it's uneven, and it depends on where you're talking about. If you're in Zirconia, you're great. You are fine for the most part. Maybe you've got some lingering debris issues, but you're pretty much back to where you were. But if you're in the gorge, the situation is very, very different. There's active work going on. There's active work by the DOT, by the state debris operators, by nonprofits like Mountain True and Conserving Carolina, who are doing work in that area. You've got people who are still very much feeling the way that they did the day or weeks after the storm. And it's important for us to acknowledge that as county employees and as somebody in my position who's working in recovery. But what recovery for me looks like is not just building back to September 26th, but also, and I kind of touched on it earlier, building back better. So it's thinking about, do we have enough housing units in Henderson County because we've had so many people who have been displaced? Do we have enough green space in Henderson County to take in some of the floodwaters that may happen the next time around? Do we have enough kind of framework within the county with collaborations between nonprofit partners and the government and other entities to have a robust response and recovery, seamless transition into recovery for the next storm? Those are the kinds of things that we're building. And then it also means that we update, the plans that the county has, which usually are housed with the Emergency Management Division, which is where I'm housed, to ensure that we took everything that went wrong during Helene, whether we knew that it was going to go wrong or not, and ensure that we work towards not having that same thing go wrong. I always like to say, you want your kids to go to therapy for different reasons than you go to therapy, and it's kind of the same vibe with our plans. We want there to be an after-action report that's not rehashing the same things over and over and over again. And so that's the future part, right? And also, who's really involved as well, and we got to give a shout out, is the economic community, our businesses, our small business partners, our larger entities and utilities like Duke, like Pardee, all of these places all have a role to play in recovery. And by all of us working together and realizing that Henderson County is one community, that's what makes us more ready and able to bounce back for the next disaster. And that's what recovery is taking all these disparate pieces and putting them together in a way that they all work synergistically. That's my SAT word of the day. And become more than the sum of their parts for the next storm.
And one thing as you're talking about just different partnerships, different people we work with, the county did a lot with United Way and other businesses in forming the Disaster Recovery Partnership, that long-term recovery group, which I know you work very closely with. The Red Cross has got a lot of case managers working with a lot of people too. And so maybe talk about those groups and the role they're going to play now and in the future.
That's a great point. So the Disaster Recovery Partnership is a coalition. Well, first, let's go back a little bit. American Red Cross was here after the storm. They were like, oh my gosh, what can we do? We gave them $1.5 billion tasks. You guys gave them $1.5 billion tasks because I wasn't here then. And then the American Cross gave funding to the United Way, and they said, here, stand up a long-term recovery group. And the United Way was like, oh my gosh, great, thanks for the money, we love this. And they set up the Disaster Recovery Partnership. And that is a coalition of 50 plus nonprofit organizations in Henderson County, all with the goal and stated mission to work together to provide residents one place to go to get unmet needs identified, cataloged, and possibly addressed, right? Every dollar that you donate to a local nonprofit, El Centro, True Ridge, Mountain True, all of those places, those get poured back into those respective organizations, giving them additional opportunities to help residents of Henderson County. So they are almost like a safety net for people that I can't help with county resources because I may not have something that I can put towards those folks, or the state can't help, or the federal government can't help. At the very end of the line is these nonprofit partners who have so graciously come in with their time, their money, their resources, their networks, their connections, the trust that they've built in the communities to be that stalwart, that last line of help for residents of Henderson County.
And one place I know that we have for the county, we can still find all this information, is on our website. The big red banner across the top, or even in HendersonCountyNC.gov/Helene still takes you straight to that page. But there's a ton of information still on our website where people can find information. One thing kind of coming back to something you said earlier, too, about what's happening down in the gorge area with in Girton and Bat Cave, is the work we've been doing with North Carolina Department of Transportation. DOT down there has been unbelievable. Because, again, a lot of the problems down there, we got to be able to get around to get to people to do stuff. And roads were gone. 64 and 9 and 74 were just completely tore up from the storm. DOT has done an amazing job down there rebuilding it. We've worked closely with them because, again, the key down there, you got to be able to get around. And, man, I tell you, I know you've worked a lot with them too, and they've done just amazing work down there for us.
I really can't agree more. I have really... Prior to this storm, I have never worked as closely with a Department of Transportation before, right? I knew of them as a resident of my respective states, whether I was in Georgia or Florida. And sometimes I did some work for them some work that included them at FEMA. But watching these folks day to day, week to week, month to month, just slowly stitch back together these roads has been nothing short of inspiring. And the care that they put into it and the way that they are willing to collaborate with not just me as a county representative, right, but our fire marshal, our emergency services division, public safety, the sheriff's office, to ensure that everything that's happening isn't just right for DOT, but right for the community writ large, has been so amazing to see. Also, the collaboration that they have with utility departments. I didn't even know the level of collaboration that had to happen there. I suppose I assumed perhaps like anybody would, that like, I don't know, lines go in, water comes out, it is fine. But it is such a dance, almost like a ballet that has to be orchestrated, and who's going to go where and what's going to happen when and who's got the final say and all of this stuff. And it's just so great to sit in a room of people and actually know and see that what they want to do is the very best for the people that they're working, for and around. And so I know that North Carolina DOT has this statistic out that I think it's like 98% of all roads of North Carolina have been rebuilt. And that 2% of roads that haven't been built are, just like you said, places where there was no access. And I've been up to some of those massively, massively damaged roads, and I've seen what they're starting with, and they are literally putting wooden beams on places to be able to take a truck across, to be able to move a boulder that's in their way. They're moving the stream with government permission and like respect for laws and stuff like that. It is just, I respect engineers. I've always respected engineers, because you can dream up a civilization, but an engineer is the one that has to actually put in the work to build it. And watching them build it has been nothing short of frankly magical to me.
Yeah. I had an opportunity to go down, literally just days after the storm with Glenn Gillette, our deputy fire marshal, and to just, I was scared, to be honest with you, going down 64, because as you're coming down 64, out of Edneyville, heading into Bat Cave, once you got to the Welcome to Bat Cave sign right there on 64, there was no road. The whole right side of the road was missing. And I was like, is this safe? Should we be doing this? And again, not just there, but then Highway 9 was tore up right there close to the fire station, on up 74, just gone, heading up towards Girton. So again, to see what they've been able to do in the amount of time they've been able to do it. And I tell people all the time, you got to remember, we live in the mountains. Yep. And so when this happens, it's different to build a road here, because you've dealt with hurricanes and storms in other areas. And what has that challenge been like? Just being a year and a half almost removed from it now, or 16 months since the storm hit, this is difficulties in where we live and doing some of this stuff.
Oh my gosh, what a great question. So I have seen roads that have been washed away by the ocean, right? Especially when I worked in Florida and did disasters in Florida, and I lived in Florida. I grew up there. Those are my stomping grounds, right? I've seen roads torn away by ocean waves and stuff like that. And yes, it is difficult to rebuild because your water table is higher and you don't have as good of a foundation, and like salt water, wow, what a bummer, whatever. But it's all flat. It is all flat. Here, that same trip that Mike was talking about, I went on that trip. And I am not a mountain girl. This was my first real experience in the mountains. And I remember holding on white knuckles to the seats going, this is fine. Everything is great. I'm not going to die here. This is fine. And anyways, so yes, terrain, incredibly difficult. In some cases, they have to blast through the rocks itself, bedrock itself, to be able to get the materials that they need to get at the depth that they need to get it, whatever. The isolated nature of those communities as well. I think it is important to note that when you pick a place that's remote and it's got these beautiful views and it's just, wow, that also means that this is going to take a long time to get to where you need to be. People carved literal gravel paths up those mountains, and now you got to rebuild that, right? Entire sides of the mountains fell away. I remember driving through that area and thinking, it looks like a giant came and just picked up trees and stomped all over the place and swept at it. And I asked myself, how is this going to happen? How is this going to get rebuilt? Are these people going to have to move, So yeah, terrain has been difficult. Having enough space to put the road and the utilities and the homes all back in the same place has been difficult because you've lost a lot of land that was there that's, washed away. And then the other part that is increasingly difficult is that the way that the roads were built prior to the storm was fine for the time that they were built. But now we're in the year of our Lord 2026 and safety standards have changed. So instead of being able to get away with a 1-lane road with absolutely no easement cut on the side of a mountain without a guardrail, safety standards require them to build it back in a way that is frankly better for the commuter, better for the resident that's there. And so that takes time. That takes time to think about easements. That takes time to think about how you're going to build it. Where are you going to cut through? How are you going to reorient the river? Who are you going to work with on that? All of that is difficult, which thankfully they're getting the hard work of permits, designs, approvals, all of that stuff done prior to starting construction so that when they do construction, it can go a little bit faster.
And from the very beginning of the storm, we preached patience. We said this is a marathon and not a sprint. And here we are 16 months removed, and that is still the same thing. And I tell people all the time, look at when Tropical Storm Fred blew into Haywood County several years ago. They are still dealing with stuff from Fred. So here we are 16 months later, we're still dealing with stuff from Helene. And as we navigate through all this stuff too, Natalia, we're still trying to get funding. And that's a process. It takes a while, but you've been on the front lines. I've been on the front lines some too. I tell you what, our folks work hard for the county, all of our employees here that work for Henderson County, to try and get the funding that we feel our residents deserve.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. I mean, our county manager loves to say, who's going to wake up worried about this thing? And this thing can be anything from a resident complaint to the lack of transitional housing for people in the Renew NC program, right? It really runs a spectrum. And so I am very hashtag blessed almost to be working with people who think that this is as serious as it is, right? I have seen communities where they lack the expertise, they lack the capacity, they lack, frankly, the staffing to even attempt some of these recoupments from FEMA, right? They kind of just leave that money on the table, and it's sometimes to their detriment, especially if you've got a budget of $400,000 and you've experienced $2.5 million worth of damage that you have to cover. So in our case, you've got me, this is all I do. This is all I think about all day long. You've got, people in emergency management, like our GIS planner, Katie, like Jimmy Brissy, whom everyone knows and loves, You've got Chris Todd, you've got John Mitchell, you've got Nora Shui, you've got all of these people, and then even ancillary people, right? people that you wouldn't even think would be involved with FEMA stuff, but our solid waste department, the dumpsters and the gourds, that has to go through the solid waste department, and who's going to manage that and who's going to pick those up. And then our planning department on how about these acquisitions for HMGP or landslide stabilizations or whatever. Literally every department in Henderson County administration has been touched and works on Helene response. And so it's actually kind of beautiful to see. Everyone cares. It's so weird. It's such a wonderful place to be. So yeah, it's definitely though a complex process, and it requires so many I's to be dotted, so many T's to be crossed, and really a world star level of detail, of attention to detail to kind of get it all across the finish line. And then being able to translate almost between what the county wants and what FEMA needs is its own skill set. And that's where I think I bring the most benefit for that particular part, and kind of being able to think conceptually about all of the problems and all of the different grant opportunities and everything else that we've got going on to make sure that what we're presenting to FEMA has the highest chance of going through and getting us money at the end of the day.
Yeah, folks, I've been in a lot of meetings, I've been in a lot of phone calls, I've seen firsthand and personally the people of Henderson County, the leadership of Henderson County, our board, our county manager, assistant county manager, all the way down, all of us here. And what Natalia's doing, we're out there fighting for the county every single day to help us recover from this storm. And I'm proud to say I work here. I'm proud to say I work with Natalia and all those folks. And, this isn't just, what is our podcast? We can say whatever we want to on the Henderson County podcast. Yeah. But we are blessed. We are truly blessed in this county to have the folks. And Natalia, I tell you, it's horrible that the storm happened, but we got you through the storm. And we got Tiffany Lucy, who's doing a tremendous job doing our social media, able to shift some positions around that and again, as you talked about earlier, we realized things that we needed to be in place to prepare us for the next time we have a storm. And also in the meantime, take care of what's happened from the storm that just happened 16 months ago. So listen, I wanted to talk to you because I wanted people to really get to know you, first of all, and also get to realize the important job you're doing. And I appreciate you, and hope the folks in Henderson County appreciate you too.
Well, good news is that I appreciate you as well. And I would do it even if the county residents didn't appreciate me, but I know that they do because they're my neighbors and I see them at Ingalls and they tell me things and I'm just like, hey guys, it's Saturday. I'm shopping. Please don't look at me. My hair's a mess. But no, Hurricane Helene, I never in a million years would have expected that it was going to change my life the way that it did as a non-North Carolina resident. But coming here, helping, doing my part during the storm while I was with FEMA, meeting everyone here, it rocked my world in the best way. And now I have a super cool job that fills my cup and my desire to serve my neighbors and my county and my country in ways that really fulfill me. And I get to live in the mountains, which are scary, but cool. So I'm glad to be here, and thanks for interviewing me. Appreciate ya.
Hey, once again, I appreciate you, and I think all of us here in Henderson County do too. And once again, information, a lot of stuff we talked about on our website, hendersoncounty.nc.gov/Helene, or the big red banner across the top. There's Hurricane Helene resources there, ton of links to stuff. And once again, as things have come available, news breaks, and we find out more funding available, you'll be hearing from us as that happens. But Natalia, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you folks for listening to the Henderson County Conversations Podcast.